And here now with his outlook for Walmart is Budd Bugatch. He's a retail analyst at Raymond James. Mr. Bugatch, welcome. Good to have you with us. Your report just out within the last couple of hours. You call Walmart a market perform stock, and I guess that means you're neutral on it. You basically are comfortable if you own it, but you're not urging people to go in and buy hand over fist. What do you see here?
Well, that's correct. I mean, we see obviously a terrific retailer and certainly an important company for consumers and for investors alike. But we think the valuation is such that it will perform at a market level. The valuation today is around 15 times our estimate going forward, and that's actually above the 5-year median and right in line with the 10-year median. So on that basis, we find the stock as a market perform.
So as you look at the earnings that came out today and also the outlook going forward, what's the issue here for Walmart? Is it specific to Walmart, or is it something that has to do with the economy and what's going on in Washington?
Well, I mean, the old joke, as Mary Thompson said, while retail is detail, there are only two problems in the quarter, revenues and expenses. But when you look at the detail, which you really have to do in Walmart because there are lots of moving pieces, there were some bright spots in the report, and then there were some challenges in the report. Among the bright spots in the report was the expense leverage at Walmart U.S., but yet on the negative side, the sales were light. They were down 1.4% on a comp basis, and that was a bit of a disappointment, certainly below our expectation of negative 0.5 of a point. So there are lots of other issues that are going on. In international, you've got much higher expenses, and the company is working on that. Obviously, FCPA was larger than expected, and that's going to continue for an indeterminate period of time. There are other corporate expenses that we're also cutting into profits, yet there's some other areas that are positive. So there are lots of puts and takes in Walmart, as you would expect with a company of this size and this importance.
Two questions. Does it concern you that their outlook for the current quarter is a little more tepid than the street consensus in terms of the earnings per share? That's number one. And number two, as you talk about international expenses, one of the things that was way bigger than they expected were the costs associated with that Mexican bribery scandal. And now, even though it's really a rounding error in terms of their total revenues, and now we also have the issues of the Bangladesh clothing factories, which Walmart is going into and investigating very closely. Are these issues important to you?
Well, certainly they're important. The FCPA issue has been important since really the spring of last year, and the company is working, I think, pretty hard to try and get their arms around it. But that's an investigation that includes some agencies of the federal government, so it's going to go on for a while. And the $73 million they spent this quarter was certainly much more than they forecasted. I think that was about $40 to $45 million. So that's a lot more. And the next quarter, it looks like $60 to $65 million. I did ask the company offline about the 14 different categories that they are looking at for compliance criteria. I think that's actually would set up a pretty interesting scorecard. They're not going to disclose all of those publicly, but I think Walmart is to be credited with actually trying to get their arms around it, and I think it could be a model for many companies. Obviously, as a bellwether corporation, it's a lightning rod for a lot of criticism and a lot of scrutiny, and the company takes that very seriously. So I'm actually impressed with what they're trying to do. It costs some money to do that in the near term, but I think the company's to be credited with that. They've had obviously some issues with their suppliers overseas. The Bangladesh issue is not just the first, but they take these very seriously, and they've set up some zero tolerance policies to really combat those kinds of misdeeds that might be going on offshore.
All right, Budd Bugatch, thank you very much. Retail analyst with Raymond James.